Welcome to the People's Rally. I'm Michelle Becote Jackson, AARP's Vice President of the Office of Volunteer Engagement, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have all of you here with us today. This rally isn't just another event, it's a movement to show candidates that voters 50 plus are the force to be reckoned with in every election. We're the ones protecting Social Security, standing up for caregivers, and making sure our voices are heard from coast to coast. This is our rally to remind candidates what matters most to millions of Americans like you and me. It's amazing to see so many of you already, and we're expecting even more to join us as we go. You can feel the excitement building, can't you? Let's kick things off by lighting up the chat. Tell us where you're tuning in from, whether that be Zoom, Facebook, or YouTube. We'd also like to know, where in the country are you logging on from today? So let's make some noise in that chat. Great. And speaking of the chat, I want to take a moment and introduce Reshma Mehta. She's the Vice President of Advocacy, Outreach, and Mobilization with the campaigns team right here at AARP. She'll be reading your live comments later on the call, so please share what you want the candidates to hear about your lived experiences in the chat during today's program. Reshma?
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you to all of you out there today for showing up and making your voices heard. I want to take a moment and thank each and every one of you, the volunteers and advocates, because you are the driving force behind everything that we have accomplished this year. Your commitment, your passion, and your energy are the reasons why we're able to reach voters all across this great country and mobilize them around the issues that matter most. And the work isn't done yet. Election day is coming up fast, and we're going to need each and every one of you to stand up, speak out, and make sure that the issues of the 50-plus community are front and center. Right, Michelle?
Absolutely, Reshma. Today's rally is just the beginning. Across the country, our amazing volunteers are stepping up through our 1 in 5 volunteer program, making sure their friends, family, and neighbors know exactly what's at stake this election, and there's still time for you to join them. Please send an email to volunteer@aarp.org and let them know you're all in to tell your friends and family to vote for the issues that matter to them. AARP has always stood to protect Social Security, support family caregivers, and fight for Medicare. But it's time to turn up the heat and make sure every candidate hears loud and clear. We need solutions, and we need them now. It's time for candidates to walk in our shoes and feel what it's like to rely on these essential programs. Today, we'll be hearing stories from people just like you who are dealing with these challenges each and every day. Their voices matter, and so do yours. So stick with us and let's make this rally count. To kick us off, let's hear from Nancy Lamond, AARP's Executive Vice President and Chief Advocacy and Engagement Officer.
Hello, I'm Nancy Lamond, Chief Advocacy and Engagement Officer at AARP. Welcome to the 2024 People's Rally. Here at AARP, we believe in the power of voter engagement. When older voters speak up about the issues they care about, elected officials and political candidates on both sides of the aisle must listen. That's why we're calling on every candidate for federal office to step up on what matters most to older Americans and their families, things like protecting Social Security and supporting family caregivers. If Congress doesn't act in the next 10 years, the Social Security that folks count on to pay their bills in retirement could be cut by 20%. That's an average loss of $4,000 per year. We need our elected officials and political candidates to tell us what they will do to protect Social Security so people get the benefits they've earned. We also must push for expanded programs and policies to help family caregivers save time, save money, and get the resources they need to care for their loved ones with confidence. 48 million Americans are helping care for parents, spouses, and other adult family members or friends. That's 1 in every 5 voters. During this rally, you'll hear directly from a few of them about the challenges they face. You'll also learn more about Social Security and what it means to the financial security of millions of Americans. These issues affect all of us, and it's up to us to demand action. I hope you'll leave this event feeling energized and ready to make your voice heard. Contact your local candidates and remind them, helping older Americans and supporting family caregivers should be a top priority. You can find more information on how to reach your candidates at aarp.org/vote. Thank you for joining us today. Together, we can win the fight to strengthen Social Security and ensure caregivers across the country get the support they deserve. Let's make our voices impossible to ignore.
Thank you, Nancy. And as Nancy stated, this community, the 50-plus voters, are the ones who show up, who care, and who are ready to make change. Millions of family givers are out there every day taking care of their loved ones, sacrificing their own time, energy, and sometimes even their own well-being. It's time we got the support we deserve. Like Nancy said, 1 in 5 voters are caregivers, and caregivers vote. Let's make sure every candidate out there knows just that. Now, let's step into the shoes of Suzanne Leedy from Virginia. Suzanne is a fighter. She cares for her wife, Susie, who is living with multiple sclerosis and recently had a stroke. Medicaid plays a critical role in helping Suzanne provide care, but they don't do it alone. Suzanne and Susie rely on a network of friends to keep going strong. Their story is one of resilience, and it's one of millions. Let's hear directly from Suzanne now.
I am Suzanne, and I'm a family caregiver for my wife, Susie. My wife had a stroke in 2020. She was in 3 hospitals and 2 rehab centers before I could actually bring her home. The last rehab center said to me, "What is your situation at home?" And I told them, and they said, "Okay, do you feel like you can handle Susie? Because she needs help with all of her daily living, whatever she has to do. Get up, get dressed, go to the bathroom, shower, bring her upstairs." I said, "I can handle it. I have friends who are with me, and I can handle it." So I brought her home. It never occurred to me that caregiving was going to be part of our lives and that I would be the one. Susie is a retired nurse. I figured she would be the one, and I'm older than her. But no, now I'm the one. So it never occurred to me. I didn't really think about it. Our life has changed drastically. I find myself, and I was just thinking about this the other day, instead of just getting up, going to have coffee and my breakfast, I have to think about her, and I have to get her up and get her ready for the day too. It's not that it's a chore, it's just an extra thought. And I don't mind doing it because I love her. We've been together for 35 years. We've been married for 10, ever since it was legal in Virginia. I don't mind it. I'm just saying it's an extra thought. The main problem with Susie is that the MS has affected her ability to walk. We live in a split-level house, so there are 6 steps from the garage to the main floor, and then there are another 8 steps that go up to the bedrooms. Since Susie came home from the hospital finally, or rehab, she hasn't been able to go up the steps. So we transfer her from her chair to a wheelchair, to the stair lift, to a wheelchair, to bed. So there's 4 transfers involved in just getting her from where she spends her day to where she goes to bed. If I could get her up 1 more flight of steps, she would have a walk-in bathtub, she would have an exercise bike, she'd be in her own bed with her own stuff. Now we're living in the basement because we only have 1 stair lift and I can't get another one from the healthcare company. I would absolutely call myself an advocate. Anyone who's willing to listen to me, I'll tell them exactly what's wrong. I can't go to Congress and yell at them, but I would certainly be on Zoom and talk to them because it's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. I think caregiving needs more emphasis, and I think it needs more attention from Congress. And I think there's a lot of things that they could do.
Suzanne's and Susie's story is living proof that family caregiving goes far beyond just family. It's about community, it's about support systems, and it's about making sure everyone gets the care they need. Now it's your turn. If you're a family caregiver, we want to hear from you. Drop in the chat what you want candidates to know about your experiences, because this election is about you. Millions of Americans rely on family, friends, and vital services like Medicaid and Medicare, but these programs are being threatened. We need your voices to help protect them. And now, before we hear more powerful stories, let's take a quick poll. Ready, Reshma?
Yep, thank you, Michelle. So our first poll question is simple but powerful. Do you plan to vote in the November 5th general election? Do you plan to vote on November 5th? Let's see those responses coming in, whether you're tuning in from Zoom, Facebook, or YouTube. And as we wait, don't forget what Michelle just said. Please drop in the chat what you want the candidates to know about your life and what it's like to walk a day in your shoes. And Michelle, we've heard some really touching stories here today from Suzanne and others, and we're just taking a look to see what those poll results are. I know you guys are voting from around the country right now to let us know if you plan to vote on the November 5th general election. All right, so I'm getting some live numbers in, and I think not surprisingly, we see 99% of folks on Zoom and 100% of folks on Facebook say yes, you are ready to cast your votes in this crucial election. Thank you to everyone who answered the poll. And Michelle, back to you. Oh, I do want to take a moment to remind you guys of one thing. I'm sorry. Tomorrow is National Voter Registration Day. So if you have not yet registered to vote, it sounds like most of you have based on this poll, but if you haven't yet, or if you need to update your registration, now is the perfect time. So you can head over to aarp.org/election guides. That's aarp.org/election guides to make sure you're ready to vote in November. Let's ensure every single one of us is ready to vote and to make a difference. Now, Michelle, back to you.
Thanks, Reshma, and thanks so much for adding on that great reminder. Now, let's talk about the real backbone of long-term care in this country, family caregivers. These are the unsung heroes who do everything from buying groceries to managing medications to bathing and dressing, often at great personal cost, putting their own jobs, finances, and health at risk. They provide over $600 billion in unpaid labor each year, saving taxpayers billions while keeping their loved ones at home. Next, let's hear Walt Zerenner, a Vietnam veteran from Wisconsin who cared for his wife for 17 years while she battled Alzheimer's. He spent over $1 million on long-term care, depleting his retirement savings. At 82, he's thinking about going back to work because Social Security just isn't enough. Let's listen to Walt's story now.
My name is Walter Zerenner, and I was a family caregiver for my wife for 17 years. In 2009, she was diagnosed with early onset of Alzheimer's. So my whole basically life was changing at that point. So when we moved out to Wisconsin, we moved here because of my daughter and 4 grandchildren being here when I retired. And I had I was a senior IT executive in a large healthcare organization, so I started my own independent consulting practice here. But then when Eileen's diagnosis came along, I had to shut down my business and pass on those contracts because I couldn't travel and I couldn't leave her alone. I certainly couldn't take her with me. So that was a big changing event there. We had saved, I'd done a pretty good job putting a nest egg away. It wiped out my retirement savings. I was doing okay with Eileen in memory care because I had invested in long-term care insurance. And but when she fell and broke both hips, I had problems with the medical insurance company in terms of reimbursement for the care and the rehabilitation there. And then when she had to stay in skilled nursing for 4 years at $540 a day, there's no life and long-term care policy that covers that, and that pretty well chewed up my retirement savings. My plan all along was to be able to live off the return on my investment, but the investment went away. If I had a politician to talk to right now about caregiving, I would say one of the biggest challenges for everybody is the cost of caregiving. If you're incapable of keeping the person home and providing care for themselves, and also worrying about your own health, and you have to go to a care facility, it's very expensive. They don't understand the cost of care and basically the toll that it takes on the caregiver. The last 2 years, inflation has driven up my monthly costs at $700 a month. Okay, I had to put a pretty good nest egg together for our retirement. Alzheimer's took care of that. Once she went to skilled nursing facility, it was $540 a day, and she was there 4 years. So you can do the math on that, and I don't think these politicians get that. I don't think they understand it, or if they do, they don't care. I would be very much in favor of legislation that would support the caregiver. I mean, after being a caregiver for 17 years, yeah, I could have used some help.
A big thank you to Walt for sharing his story. But he's not alone. So many Americans are depending on Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid to care for their loved ones. We'd love to hear from you in the chat. Are you making ends meet on Social Security alone? We have to stand up and make sure these services are protected. That's why we need you all to share your stories at candidate forums, town halls, and with your elected officials. Speaking of, we have some great comments coming in through the chat. Reshma, can you share a few with us, please?
Absolutely, Michelle. The comments are on fire today. Thank you all so much. I'm going to take a minute and highlight some of the incredible stories that you all are sharing in the chat. Again, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, thank you to everyone who's out there every single day talking to candidates and attending town halls across the country. Your voices are making a difference. So let me read a few of these great comments to you guys. First from Mimi from New Orleans saying, I want candidates to speak up on saving Social Security and fighting inflation. Stacy, I am worried about the economy, housing, Social Security, and Medicare Part A and B. Candace says, I live on a fixed income and I'm unable to keep up with increasing costs. I need help, lower taxes, increase Social Security, improved healthcare and Medicare, lower drug costs, and lower inflations. Tamara says, I'm concerned about benefits to assist senior caregivers who are guardians and caregivers for other seniors having access to resources, whether through their area agencies on aging, and allowing some of those resources and benefits to be available to seniors who are not below or within the range of the federal poverty income level. Charlotte says, I want politicians to root out corruption that targets the elderly. Betty, and I agree with you here, Betty, I would love to hear the nuts and bolts of each candidate's plans for the future of Medicare, the economy, Social Security, long-term care, and more. It's hard to make a decision based on platitudes, says Betty. Scott says, we are now sandwiched with providing care and support for our aging mother. And there's so many of these comments in there. Here's Judy saying, I want elected officials to know I was a caregiver. We've paid into Social Security and Medicare for years. All right. So these are common themes that we're hearing from people all around the country on the importance of Social Security, Medicare, family caregiving, lower prescription drug prices, and so much more. Back to you, Michelle.
So awesome. Loving the energy in the chat. Now we've got another story to share with you. This time, it's Terry Peacher Ransom from Indiana. Terry is a caregiver for her husband, Don, who is living with Parkinson's disease. They rely heavily on Social Security and home care support from the Veterans Administration. Their story shows just how important these services are to families across the U.S. Let's hear from Terry now.
My name is Terry Peacher Ransom, and I am a caregiver for my husband, Don Ransom. We've been married 37 years, come September the 19th, so we get along well. We had said when we retired we were going to buy an RV and just travel. Well, we can't even travel to the doctor without him getting tired, so that's what I miss, the spontaneity in our relationship. Caregiving for my husband is kind of a natural thing. I'm a kind of a caring person. Actually, it wasn't that bad until this year. He was doing stuff that he wasn't capable of doing. And I'd come home and he'd fall in, or I'd see bruises on him and whatnot. I had to cut back on my activities at church. I was the president of my organization. One of my responsibilities at church was counting the money after church. And we go to church at 10, and we usually got out by 11:30, and it had gotten so much that I wasn't getting home till 2:30 or 3 o'clock, and that's too long because he only sleeps for like 2.5 hours, and I, time his medication, so when I give him his medication, I can run out, for up to 2 hours and come back. So that's the biggest thing that I had to give up was my church activities. I retired because of my job. My job shut down, and so I just, got another job working from home. But that was kind of a stressful job where if he needed attention, if I was on a Zoom call, I couldn't go in there. If I heard him holler or say something, that he failed, then I couldn't go in there. So I just said, forget it. I'll do what I need to do for my husband. 'Cause in my vows, I said in sickness and in health. So it's sickness and health. Social Security plays a pivotal role in my finances because it is my main income. Because I was just thinking about this yesterday. I started working in 1976 when I was 18 years old. I worked for 48 years to deserve what they give me. I am so fearful that he may eventually have to go to a nursing home and they'll take everything from me. What I would say to the candidates today, starting with president on down to your city, county councilor, think about what you're doing to people and the effects that it's going to have to somebody like me who's 66 years old, cares for a husband who is 69 years old, while he was a government federal worker retired from the post office, and I did pretty good in my career as an IT underwriter person. Things have gone up. Things are not like they were, and if things go up and your money stays the same or you take away from your money, what's going to happen with people? I think the candidates today, as they're running for office, should put themselves in our places or put themselves in their mother's places and see if they will want what they want to be done to their mother or to their father or to their grandmother.
A heartfelt thank you to Terry for sharing her journey with us. Stories like hers remind us why we're in this fight, to protect the resources that help caregivers save time and money and provide the support they need. We've got time for one last poll as we begin wrapping up our rally. Reshma?
Thank you, Michelle. And here's our final poll question for today. It is, if you could tell candidates to focus on one issue in this election, what would it be? Your choices are protecting Social Security, helping family caregivers, lowering prescription drug prices, or all of the above. So go ahead, again, whether you're joining us today from Zoom, Facebook, or YouTube, please go ahead and vote and tell us which issue is most important to you. And we've heard some amazing heartfelt stories today from Terry, from Walt, from Suzanne, and we know that there's millions more stories just like that from all around the country. So please tell us, if you could tell candidates to focus on one issue in this election, what would it be? And I'm going to take a look. My team is putting some live data from all of the voting in the chat right now. So we're going to take a look and see what it is. So it sounds like so far on Facebook, I think the pretty clear winner is all of the above. 81% from our Zoom attendees, 100% from our Facebook attendees say they want politicians to concentrate on all of the above: protecting Social Security, helping family caregivers, and lowering prescription drug prices. So thank you all for participating. Back to you, Michelle.
Thank you, Reshma. And we've got one last story to share before we wrap up. Let's hear from Estelle Slutmaker from Michigan, who cared for her mother Liz while working full-time. Estelle's story is a powerful example of what so many caregivers are going through every day. Let's listen to her now.
I am Estelle. I was a caregiver for my mom, Liz. It's returning the love that you've been given. It probably was the day when she thought she was plugging in her toaster and instead put a scissor in the outlet. That was kind of a big sign, so then we got her tested, and her diagnosis was Alzheimer's. Well, it was gradual. It's kind of like walking, you want to take a walk and you take one step in the forest and pretty soon you've lost all sense of everything else. And that's all there is. It took over every part of my life, basically. That's what I was, 24/7, on alert, day and night. It took a toll. But then again, I am so grateful that I was able to keep my mom at home where she wanted to be. I'd really like to see Medicare cover more in-home care services. I believe it would be a cost saver. For example, the respite, which was available at a nursing home for 5 days, which charged $300 a day, I probably could have got someone to sit with my mom for that time for a lot cheaper at home. It would have been a lot less stressful for her, for me, and safer as well. Now I'm so glad that I did it. I feel like I said, that it was the one thing I did in life that is the right choice. There aren't a lot of those sometimes where you can look back and just have no regret. My only regret being that I wasn't there more. But again, it was, so stressful and demanding doing all that care that I did not have the quality time with my mom that I wish I would have had. Probably 3/4 of the stress is just dealing with the system. So that's something that isn't necessary. Caregivers need to be supported, not constantly barraged with new requirements and more hoops to jump through. And again, I'm just so thankful that I was able to take care of her those times, even though it was rough. But every night when I tuck her in, I'd always say, "See you later, alligator." And she'd say after a while, "Crocodile." And I'd kiss her goodnight, and I knew she was okay.
Today, we've heard from 4 amazing people who've shared their personal struggles and triumphs as they navigate healthcare and Social Security. Their stories show why it's so important to keep fighting for Medicare, Social Security, and family caregivers. These are not just issues, they are lifelines. Before we close, I want to challenge each of you to drop one more thing in the chat. How will you make sure candidates know what issues matter most to you? How will you support this fight? Thank you to everyone for sharing their own personal experiences with us in the chat. And also thank you, Reshma, for manning the polls and the chat and for all you and your team do every day on behalf of AARP. We couldn't get to everyone today, so if you want to share with candidates what it's like to walk in your shoes every day, go to www.aarp.org/People's Rally. You can even upload a picture or video if you'd like. Remember, AARP is committed to making sure candidates, no matter their party, offer real solutions for voters 50 plus and their families. Let's close out with a reminder of our strength and determination with a final video.
Meet the most powerful people in America. Why? Because people 50 and over decide elections. Last time, they outnumbered voters under 30, 4-1. So candidates need to pay attention to what these voters care about. Things like protecting Social Security and supporting family caregivers. Voters 50 and over will show up at the polls, and they vote with purpose. If you want to win, start talking about what's important to them.
As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final thought. Your vote is your power. There isn't just another election, it's our chance to shape the future for millions of Americans, for our families and generations to come. Thank you all so much for joining us today.